The first season of an interesting webtoon just finished, and let us just say I have been thoroughly entertained. Now, when it comes to webtoons, I'm a relative noob, so I can't really compare this to many other webtoons or manhwa that are out there, but I have read manga, so I can compare it to that. And this series is recently, I guess in the last year, become a webtoon original named Ordeal, and it has all sorts of great things and bad things that I could either praise or critique, but above everything, I just want to talk about how a single character in this series has elevated it to a whole new level. His name, Rokash Rampasad. Spoilers for this video will be minimal, so nothing major. Most of the plot I'll give away comes from the series description that's on Webtoon, so hopefully you should be able to go read the series after this video and enjoy it without really losing anything at all. So before I start talking about this character Rokash, I'll set the scene of the world in this story for those of you who have no idea about this series. So in this world, it's pretty much similar to ours, only if 1/3 of the population develops superpowers. So the people with superpowers are called kimyos, and their population has increased over time, and in the series there's a lot of stuff linked to their impact in history and the current world. In short, the story kind of feels like X-Men, but if it were an anime. So mutants, friction between humans and mutants, people who believe mutants are cursed people, or mutants that have superiority complexes and they want to rule over humans. But with that good old shonen anime feel. So this specific character Rokash comes from Trinidad and Tobago, which is where most of the events in the story take place, at least so far in the story. And now while he isn't the main character, he's a villain in the story. And many years ago, he was trained by the master at a dojo that now trains the main character. And the master at the dojo is kind of like, think of Charles Xavier, but if you were an old man in anime, right? Now, as the villain of the story, after the master dies, inevitably the main character, Che, that's his name, wants to get revenge on Rokash. Now, there's a whole lot more story, but that's just the basic information you need to know who the characters are. Now, as far as ambition, Rokash seems pretty basic on the surface. He's just a guy who's obsessed with proving his power and superiority, and he's willing to fight everyone and anyone. Right? Now, it's not just like he feels like, oh, humans are inferior or something like that. No, he just wants to prove his own strength. This isn't like a mutants versus humans kind of thing. This is a me versus the world kind of thing. And make no doubt, this man is strong. At the beginning of the series, he's already in the top 100 strongest people, and those people are ranked by some organization in the series that looks at everyone's powers and yada 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 yada. Now, one of the things I like, in the series are just kind of subtle hints you can look at. I like this in all stories, and in the case of his power, sometimes it makes you wonder, since his power is taken from an Egyptian mythology, does his power reflect his feelings of superiority, or did his power make him feel superior, right? Just a classic chicken and egg anecdote. Which one came first? Now, moving on to his personality, his ego and ambition would usually make him a typical selfish and self-centered character who only cares about himself, which would make sense, but what's great about the story is that he is exactly that, but not at the same time. There's so many moments where, it makes you definitely question what his personality really is and what he really thinks or feels deep down. But just because you have these questionings about him sometimes and this confusion, make no mistake, this guy is evil, and the story makes you always remember that this guy is evil. It never wastes opportunity. So you are never like on the fence of whether he's a good guy or not. You're just on the fence of whether you should be sympathetic towards him or not. An example of this is when he gets into a fight with some random people. Everyone around him in the city starts running away and running for their lives, and at some point there's a woman who falls down on the ground. And just as you think that this guy is actually decent, just as he extends a hand to help this woman off of the floor, they prove that this guy is just irredeemably evil by allowing him to kill her while using her as a projectile to fight. Yes, as a projectile, a human being. So yeah, this guy is pretty cemented as a bad guy. But despite being a bad guy, Brent Bristol, the author of the series, has still somehow managed to make him one of the most charismatic, the most charismatic character in the series, and compared to a lot of other series. Because Rokash is just simply so much fun to be around because he isn't concerned with the plot of the story that's going on. And it's to the point that it feels like he knows what the overarching plot of the story is and he's actively breaking out of it to do his own thing. Which is also kind of true to a degree because he does know certain secrets in the story and he seems to be acting based on them. So yeah, there is that dynamic. And if you aren't careful, you might forget what the entire story is actually building towards and what it's actually about, and get pulled into the plot that Rokash is weaving for himself. Because he not only takes over the story, but his mere presence dominates every scene that he's in. Like, he completely dominates everything. And if you compare Rokash, which is the leader of his group, to Che, the main character, who's also kind of the leader of his group, while Che and his friends are being sent from left to right on wild goose hunts and all that kind of stuff, just reacting to all the stuff that's happening in the story, Rokash simply does whatever he feels like doing. If he wants to sleep, he'll sleep. If he wants to run away, he'll run. And if this man wants to fight naked, he will fight naked. Like, this guy just doesn't care. There's so many scenes I could honestly point at and discuss, but for spoiler reasons, I won't. The point is that you always want to see more of him because you're never completely sure what he'll do or say. But that's not the only reason. The other thing about Rokash is that he seems to have a lot more to his character that makes you interested in how this guy truly feels about everything, or just how did this guy come to be the way he is. And on top of all of that, they're still trying to figure out more about his powers because the powers in the series have a certain complexity to them, which means that they have hidden stuff and different levels, so it's very interesting to follow this guy around. Having finished the first season of the series, Rokash is easily my favorite character right now. And because unlike most characters in the stories, he has agency and freedom that allows him to exist in the story, but in a way that makes him feel like he can choose whether he wants to conform to the plot or not. And more than this, he has very high ambitions when it comes to proving his strength against the strongest people in the world. But he doesn't seem to let this ambition weigh him down, right? He simply is just happy to go with the flow and let whatever happens happen. It's kind of like Luffy from One Piece. Despite having lofty goals, his main concern is really just enjoying himself through it all. So yeah, for me, Rokash, top points for charisma. I recommend that if you haven't read this story already, you go ahead and do it. Let that be the next one on your to watch list. Not at the bottom of your list, at the very top of your to watch or to read list. Put that in there. Art is great, story is great, lots of great things about it, but you know what, just the charisma part of it, fantastic. Also, at the top of your to watch list and to do list, please put the subscribe button in there and maybe some of my other videos. Thanks.